Hey everybody. I never expected myself to be reviewing this game, but I just couldn't help it in the end. I finished the Death Note Netflix show or movie, not show, movie this time, about a week ago, and I had to take some time to think about it before I came onto the channel to talk about what I thought about it. I wanted to get refocused, rebalanced before I brought up the good, the bad, and what I'm thinking going forward with it. So I'm going to try to start with the positive. It won't take too long to get through, but I'll start with the positive. Then I'll move over to the negative aspects, and then we'll go from there. Before I do, though, of course, welcome to the channel if you're new to the channel. I put up videos, not very often lately, but I'm getting back into it. I've got another video up later today. Of course, if you hit that subscribe, you hit that bell, you'll definitely know whenever I do throw out videos, which is pretty cool. And of course, like, comment, share. I always appreciate it, and I love to hear your thoughts and opinions, especially on this new Netflix original movie, if you will, and anything anime, video game, JRPG especially, and even D&D related. All right. So the positive things. Well, the girl who played Misa rather, Margaret Qualley, her version of said character was entertaining. It was kind of bloodthirsty. She was kind of a little bit of a smartass, and she was an interesting surprise element to Light Turner's life in the end. But I thought she was super interesting. She was funny. She wasn't as much of a pushover as per se Misa was. So that was kind of cool. It was entertaining to see some of the things. I loved her line where she was like, "Give me my fucking notebook," or "Give me my fucking book," which was killing me. In the way that she stole a page and how she got involved and she was taking things into her own hand was kind of funny. Plus, I mean, the first scene with her when she's with the cheerleaders and she gets lifted in the air and she decides to just cross her arms while she's on top of like a mini pyramid and blow the hair out of her face. That was pretty funny to me. Next, William Dafoe as Ryuk was a lot of fun. You could hear him channeling all the craziness, all the insanity that you heard as Green Goblin in the Spider-Man Sam Raimi trilogy, so that was pretty cool. He had a ton of energy. Some of his lines really freaked you out, Nothing sounded like he was phoning it in at all. Maybe he was embodying a character we had heard before, but it worked with the kind of Ryuk and the style they were going for with this movie. Sorry, I keep calling it a show, but it's a movie, unfortunately. And then finally, the Final Destination style deaths were interesting. The early one with the bully, and then the one with the gangster that had been involved in Light Turner's mother's death. Those were pretty interesting, especially the one with the bully. It was a new take on the Death Note. So seeing how it caused certain things to conspire to kill a person within a time limit was kind of nuts. Now I'm out of positives, so we're going over to the negative side of things. So the first thing that I had an issue with this movie, I got it right this time, was there was no battle of intellects. Light Turner was kind of a dumbass. Let's just be real. He was a dumbass. The first line I remember in the movie, he is trying to save some kid who's getting bullied by some bully, I guess, who's like a second-year senior or something. And he like steps up to the guy, and the guy's like, why won't I kick your ass? And he goes, because you're over 18 and I'm under 18, so if you beat the shit out of me, it's child abuse. And at that point, I wanted him to just knock him out, which he does. Light Turner gets his ass kicked, and I had no qualms about it. But he wasn't a very smart dude. I mean, when L starts confronting him, which isn't very intelligent on L's part, the way that he does, he never explicitly says, "No, it's not me." He just starts taunting him and messing with L and saying a lot of things that I think were very unwise. Instead of trying to play off and get the attention away from himself, he starts playing these kinds of mind games, and mind games is an overstatement. He's like, well, if it is me, well, why are you screwing with me? And I'm like, man, you got to be insane. Why would you even say that? I mean, why don't you say it's not me? You've got the wrong guy. I want to see this guy get found as well. And I know, again, this is a new interpretation. It's an adaptation, so things are going to change up, but still, that was ridiculous. And then on the L side, L was still pretty smart. I mean, he did zero in on why he felt it was someone in the Seattle PD or someone involved with them, and so on and so forth. And he had some intuitive things he was going for, especially when he like revealed his face on TV and said, "Why don't you just kill me?" And then got Light's father to say, "Hey, I'm standing up to you. Why don't you just kill me?" And it was really cool the way he did that to kind of eliminate a lot of other possibilities and leave it down to just Light. But on the other hand, they both were playing with their their cards on the table, it seemed, for a lot of the movie, which did bug me. I felt there should be more of a back and forth with a lot of inferring and critical thinking. It wasn't there. And then my second issue, the same way I said that Mia in this was really cool, she also kind of bugged me because she was bloodthirsty, and it was for like no reason. Again, when I say she gets boosted up in the air and then she's just like, whatever, devil may care. She basically was just a bored girl, who's as she calls herself, a fucking cheerleader, and she has nothing to do, so she wants to see some people die. She doesn't really have a strong reason for it. I mean, she totally gets turned on, and her and Light, start hooking up because she's just loving the power, I guess. But she really doesn't have a reason. She's bored and she wants some kind of high to get her through the day. So she's interested in killing people, and that's cool and all. But she's underwhelming. She's kind of like the Scream 4, the little villain at the end, the girl who's just all like, I just want to be famous for the heck of it doing this. It was a really shallow reason, in my opinion. So that really did turn me off. Now, it was funny at the end when she when Light's kind of conspiring against her and trying to figure out a way to eliminate her from the situation while dealing with Elle on his tail. It was kind of funny how that played out. The Ferris wheel, I'm kind of split. Like, in some ways, in hindsight, it's kind of entertaining, but it was meh. And then I guess next, Elle. Elle was super impulsive and he was emotional. The two things Elle wasn't in the anime or manga. So Elle was a really rational guy. He was very calm. He was very calculating. And he hit a lot of his thoughts. Besides thinking that Kira was Light, which he was, Elle was a really calm dude, really sedated, and just ate a lot of candy. Now, this Elle got that right. The guy they had play him, I think his name's like Lakeith or something. I know he was in Get Out, and then I remember him from Atlanta, one of my favorite shows of last year. And he spent a lot of time eating candy and sweets still, but he was super emotional. Like, when Watari goes missing, he starts freaking out, and he starts chasing down Light with some kind of weird gun. It almost looked like some special, maybe a handprint gun, and it was kind of cheesy. He starts freaking out, and even to the end of the movie, he has these weird ways that he starts becoming super like unhinged, and it was just the weirdest stuff. I didn't personally have any issues with them changing the ethnicity of him or any of the other characters for the most part. In hindsight, I'm able to look at it a little bit more objectively as just a movie. As long as I don't compare it to Death Note, I'm okay in that sense. But yeah, Elle was just super emotional, super impulsive, and he had no poise, he had no chill, man. And then Ryuk wasn't a light hand like he was in the original manga or anime adaptation, or even the live action Japanese movies. I only saw the first two, so I don't know about the third or fourth. Ryuk basically coerced and maybe manipulated Light into using the Death Note. It's hard to say if he manipulated him. He certainly all but forced him, and wasn't particularly clear. There were some things in this adaptation that were a little odd in those respects. But Ryuk was basically all but forcing him and trying to pull out some darker motives to get Light to start killing people. And kind of bugged me because I remember in the original one, Light is like this guy with the best intentions who's trying to just eliminate the filth and the dregs and the murders and the rapists of the world, and then gets corrupted by the absolute power that he has attained. In this, Ryuk's like, hey, I'm going to find a young guy plaything to see what he does with this notebook, and I'm basically going to tell him to start killing people. I don't really care who he kills. I just want to see what happens. And it, of course, it's a pale imitation. Now, on the other hand, William Dafoe's so cool that I can overlook it, and Ryuk looks insane, though there aren't a lot of views we get of Ryuk that aren't blocked by furniture or him in the closet or by darkness. But it is interesting. My final big gripe I had with this was Light does not use his brain with the Death Note. And when I say that, this is tough because I understand there's a progression in the movie, and I understand pacing was kind of weird, but you had to get to a certain place established and then get into the main meat of the movie. But the first two people Light kills are directly tied to personal vendettas he has. So first he kills the bully who kicked his ass really early in the movie, who was known for being a bully. That one, it's a freak accident, so I can kind of let that one slide. But I believe the second person he kills is like the guy who had a hit and run on his mom. So the first thing you notice is the first two people who get killed are in Seattle. Now, granted, those were more clever ways, and a lot of other people get eliminated later on, but the first two people who get killed are in Seattle. And I don't recall how he started killing criminals. I know he spread out to Japan and other places eventually, and I think the ways people died changed. But just the first couple people he kills are in Seattle, and there are easy direct ties to him. One was kicking his ass, the other one killed his mom. So I'm like, some Google searches would probably prop up his dad or his name pretty easily. At least, both of them in pretty close conjunction. It wouldn't be too hard to Google search and find him and, realize, hey, this kid might be a connection. So he made it kind of easy for Ellen. That was one of my main issues. The other thing was just, first he says the thing about the child abuse, which I don't think actually holds up. I don't think beating up an underclassman is gonna count as child abuse. Even if it was, why would you say it? The other, was there another one that was pretty good? I think there was something else dumb he said. There were a lot of dumb things he said, but I'm having trouble remembering a lot of them. I'll probably throw them in the comments later on. But yeah, I had a lot of grievances with how he came across and a lot of things he said. He said a lot of dumb stuff. He also bugged me because he screamed when he first saw Ryuk or ran into Ryuk and screamed like a baby. Like it was bad. He peed himself for sure. Like it was bad. I'm starting to question everything that Nat Wolff, the guy who played Light Turner, has ever done. Naked Brothers Band is starting to sound pretty lame. I can't believe I watched it. But yeah, I don't know. And I understand, I guess I should bring up the whitewashing did bug a ton of people. It didn't bug me in hindsight. Beforehand, yeah, it definitely offended me. But on the other hand, there were 4 live action adaptations in Japan, so we don't really need another live action adaptation. On the other hand, this movie sucks in general, so I guess that's a bigger concern. And I would look at that. If you were, I guess here's the issue, is it's an adaptation as opposed to an American version. So another way of putting this is, I believe, what's it called? The movie by Martin Scorsese, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio, and there's like the Boston Irish mob. The Departed. So The Departed is an American version of a movie called like Infernal Affairs. It's in Korea. So that's an example of where you have an American version of something that originally happened in another country. So that's not technically whitewashing. They just made an American version as opposed to an adaptation where you also decide to just switch the country. So an adaptation like the Ghost in the Shell movie where they whitewashed the cast absurdly, considering that was still Japan even in the future. That's whitewashing. So this isn't whitewash. I don't think this is whitewashing as much as it is an American version, but I don't think that was made very clear. And I think that makes it a lot more difficult to accept it just on those levels. Like if this was a movie I'd seen on Sci-Fi Channel or, I don't know, it's got a B movie feel, or if it had come from a different source, maybe I'd seen it on FX or IFC in the middle of the night, I would not have had a big issue with it. But it also wouldn't have garnered any attention because it wouldn't have been Death Note per se. But because it's based off of source material that I loved quite a bit, the manga I read up through the death of L. I didn't cover Nier or Mello, and then I covered the first 2 live action movies, and I watched the anime for a while before it got a little bit boring, to me anyway. I definitely I wouldn't have watched it, but I also wouldn't have, if I had somehow watched it, I wouldn't have had any issues with it per se, because I wouldn't have been butthurt about this original series I've been involved with. But all things considered, it's okay. Do you need to watch it? No. Rent it? Maybe. It's up to you. It's free if you have Netflix already, so it's worth a good laugh. Though you'll find it gets painful. It's kind of hard to finish, but once you do, you're kind of stunned. Plus, there's some weird editing at the end. Especially the part that comes to mind is the last thing that like Ryuk says to Light, is he says something like, "You humans are so interesting," and Light like looks at him and then goes, "Huh?" And then it cuts to credits, and I didn't understand exactly what they were doing there, because it almost hinted like there was another scene and they had cut it entirely out. Maybe that's just a really lousy way of hinting at a sequel, but I don't know. Speaking of sequels, I've heard there is going to be a sequel. I don't know where they're going to go with it. They killed off Mia/Misa. L does have his hands on one of the Death Note pages, the one that was used to kill all the FBI investigation team that was trying to figure out who Kira was. So, if he uses it, that would be interesting. Him using it, I don't know if that means he'll be able to see Ryuk, but I'm curious to see how this adaptation will handle their own interpretation of source material. But yeah, that's what I thought. What did you think? Have you seen the Death Note Netflix movie yet? If so, did you like it? Did you dislike it? Was there anything you liked about how they adapted it? Was there anything you'd like to have seen done differently? And then what would you hope to see in a sequel? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, I'll give a link to the new Final Fantasy IX video I'm putting out later today. I'll throw that in the description box below as well once it comes out. Of course, thank you so much for watching. All right, peace.